here to review them for us this morning are journalists Afua Hagan and Thomas Copeland. So welcome back to both of you. Now, you, Thomas, have spotted a story inside the Daily Mirror today which focuses on, well, more travel chaos at our airports. In fact, this is the airport's attempt to try to limit the chaos, but it's going to cause headaches for people.
That's right. I mean, it's pandemonium in British airports at the moment. So Gatwick Airport, that's what this article is focused on, has cancelled 4,000 flights, 4,000 over the peak summer months, after Downing Street told airline bosses that their timetables had to be shock horror deliverable. They had to be able to deliver their timetables, and as a consequence of that, Gatwick Airport has cancelled up to 75 flights per day. So EasyJet, British Airways, those are the big two that are expecting significant cancellations. So I suppose if you've got flights booked with either of those airlines, keep an eye on your emails, because you might see a cancellation email coming through. And of course that has huge consequences on passengers, many for whom this might be a major post-COVID trip, a delayed honeymoon, a family holiday, and all of that has significant costs as well, not even in terms of flights. And this article has some good advice as well in a Q&A section about what to do if your flight's cancellations, what you're entitled to, refunds. That's all information that passengers should know. But of course, it's hotels, it's the trains that are associated with all of this that have huge costs as well. The question as to why is a slightly more complicated one, and it's worth saying it's not just a UK issue. I mean, I was flying from Dublin there last week. Really big queues have plagued Dublin over the last while as well, with huge numbers of passengers missing flights. Essentially, it's because airlines and airports shed thousands of staff during the pandemic, because obviously there was no demand, nobody was flying. And now post-COVID, the airlines and the airports seemingly haven't foreseen the rapid skyrocketing in the number of people who want to fly. A lot of criticism on that. I mean, it seems fairly obvious that post-pandemic, a lot more people would want to fly even above pre-pandemic levels. And the difficulty in hiring workers is that in airlines and in airports, you have to go through security checks, and all this is a long and complicated system. So ultimately, the airlines have to be held accountable, and airports have to be held accountable for the way that that's managed. But also, the way that the government policy works says that these airlines have to occupy 70% of their landing and takeoff slots in order to keep those lines, or else they have to dump them. And that means that there's an incentive for these airlines to be running essentially more flights than they can manage, more flights than they have the staff to manage, and that's posing huge difficulties to passengers. Now, the idea of cancelling these flights is that you sort of reduce the number of flights and get more people on fewer flights. That eases some of this congestion. But certainly, again, a cool comfort if you're a family who's got a holiday booked, maybe spending a lot of money on it post-pandemic. It's in 2 weeks' time, and you just have no idea if that flight's going to be cancelled, what time to arrive at the airport. It's chaos.
That's right, although I think the airlines are on a bound to book you on an alternative flight, so the hope is that with enough notice that might be able to be sorted out, but you're right, it's worrying for people. After, I'm going to move on to the Daily Express front page next, because this is Paul Scully, the business minister. I interviewed him yesterday, actually. It may well be from some of those quotes, maybe from the interview that I did with him, so thank you for picking this story. But his suggestion was that he acknowledged this issue of airlines trying to recruit staff, and was suggesting that some of the workers who want to work longer might be encouraged to do that, a way of trying to make sure that the staff can be found and these positions can be filled.
Absolutely. So the business minister, Paul Scully, is saying that workers who are in those jobs, who do have jobs at the airport, should be prepared to work overtime and double shifts to make sure that things like baggage can be cleared, that there's adequate security, and there's adequate ground staff. Now, like Thomas so rightly mentioned, there's lots of people who are still to be employed at airports. There's 1.3 million vacancies at the moment, and lots of people are waiting for their security clearance, which is to come through from the Home Office, or that means that they get their specific security clearance to work at the airport. Now, that is backed up, like everything to do with the Home Office. Driving licenses, passports, everything is taking ages to come through. So unless those security clearances are given, people can't take up the jobs that they have. Couple that with the airlines overbooking holidays and overbooking flights. Like Thomas said, they have to take up 70% of their capacity at the airport, so they're encouraged to make sure those flights are flying, but they don't have the staff to be able to do that. So it doesn't really make sense that you would allow all these flights to go ahead, and now you're asking workers who are already in employment to work overtime, double time, and more shifts to pick up the slack. It seems to me that airlines and holiday companies need to get their house in order, and doing that means not overbooking flights, not putting on more flights that you're able to cope with. So the staff there, yes, some of them may want to work overtime to earn a bit more money, but people that already are working there don't need to be put under additional pressure to pick up the slack of airlines overbooking flights, travel companies overbooking flights, and Home Office not being quick enough to clear people for security who want to take up new jobs. It's all a comedy of errors. It's the perfect storm. And it means that as we're gearing up for the summer season, which is really, it's coming soon. It's now, essentially, as we're gearing up to summer holidays. Schools will be breaking up in about a month, if not 6 weeks, where even more flights are going to be going, people trying to get away on holiday. It seems that what's coming over the hill is going to be even worse than where we are now. 4,000 flights cancelled at Gatwick. We've got baggage lying in piles at Heathrow Airport. How much worse can it possibly get?
Did you want to come in there, Thomas?
Well, what I wanted to say, just very quickly, is that the idea that you run your national sort of transports and airline infrastructure on the basis of getting workers, relatively few workers who are already there, to work longer hours is essentially a nonsense. I mean, if you believe in the way that the free market should work, in this case, and largely you'd think that the government would, the thing to do is pay people more. If you want to hire more staff, increase the wages of people who work at airlines so more people apply, or even better, expedite the process at the Home Office, get more people employed to be doing these security checks. That's the way to increase in capacity, rather than telling more people that the way that the nation's holiday system is going to work is that you tell workers that they have to work more overtime and almost guilt them into doing it. It doesn't make any sense.
Okay, let's move on to another form of transport that we may have problems with next week, because it's the railways and the strikes that will hit the lines next week. 3 days of strikes, but we expect a week of disruption. They're warning, aren't they? So what's this story that you've picked out, Afua, in the Eye?
Yeah, so next week, more travel chaos as if we didn't have enough already. There's going to be rail strikes up and down the country, Scotland, England and Wales, with train operators warning commuters to work from home all of next week. You've also got a tube strike in London on Tuesday, which means that services are going to be running at 75% less capacity, only 1 in 5 trains running. And this is members of the National Union of Rail, Maritime and Transport Workers at RMT are staging a walkout on Tuesday, Thursday and Saturday. But that does mean that services either side on your Monday, your Wednesday and your Friday will also be affected, because trains won't be in the right place and things like that. So it's going to be a week long of chaos. Like I said, there's tube strikes in London as well. So people trying to get to school and to work are going to endure an even worse rush hour than ever before, because people will take to their cars to get to where they need to get to. That's why people are being encouraged to work from home. Yeah. You have got kids who are going to school who are going to endure the rush hour as well. And you've got lots of events taking place next week. You've got Glastonbury, you've got concerts going on up and down the country and festivals that are going to be affected by this rail strike as well. So the message is from the RMT, from unions, from rail workers, stay at home all next week.
Yep, indeed. And let's move on quickly, shall we, to The Guardian, a story inside, Thomas, that you've spotted about Boris Johnson potentially being made to give evidence in a new investigation into Partygate. Very briefly, if you can.
Well, basically, the contrast in this picture is amazing. Up top, here's what you got Boris Johnson wants to be talking about, largely successful policy in Ukraine, and down below you've got what Boris Johnson's he's running away from being forced to talk about the enduring agony of Partygate. You'll be in front of a Commons committee, expect that to be widely clipped, and these stories of parties and lies and all this will drag on and on and on. Exactly what Downing Street do not want.
Well, indeed, and that's definitely one to watch. There's so much around, isn't it? We could talk all day, but we are done for this moment, but I'll see you again in another hour's time. Thomas and Afua, thanks both very much indeed. Stay with us. Top Story is up next.